Seduction has always been part of human life. Long before written laws, long before kingdoms were carved out on maps, long before money became the measure of power, there was seduction. It is the silent force that bends wills without raising a weapon, that persuades without a command, that makes people follow not because they must, but because they want to. To study seduction is to peel back one of the oldest layers of human behavior. It is not simply about romance. It is about influence, persuasion, and power itself. When most people hear the word seduction, they picture candlelit dinners, whispered words, stolen glances. But those are only fragments of a much larger picture. Seduction is not limited to matters of love. It is the art of shaping desire, of making people lean toward you, of creating a gravitational pull that feels irresistible. A politician addressing a crowd uses seduction. A business magnate selling a dream uses seduction. A storyteller captivating listeners by the fire is practicing seduction. To reduce it only to the bedroom is to miss its true scope. Seduction is influence disguised as attraction. What makes seduction powerful is that it works invisibly. Armies use fear to command obedience. Laws use rules to enforce behavior. Seduction works differently. It speaks to the hidden places inside us, our insecurities, our longings, our need to feel seen. It doesn't force, it entices. It doesn't push, it draws. This makes it far more dangerous than brute power, because when someone is seduced, they believe the choice is their own. They step willingly into the current, unaware of the hands guiding the tide. Think about history's greatest seducers. Cleopatra did not conquer Rome with legions, but with presence, with allure, with an ability to make powerful men feel as though she was the center of the universe. Casanova was not remembered simply because of romance, but because he understood something deeper: how to make each person feel uniquely chosen, uniquely desired, as if the world revolved around their connection. What both reveal is this: seduction works not because of what you show, but because of what you awaken in others. And this awakening is not random. Seduction is deliberate. It is the careful weaving of mystery and attention, of presence and absence, of promise and delay. It thrives not on giving everything at once, but on withholding just enough to keep desire alive. Where ordinary persuasion appeals to reason, seduction appeals to imagination. It plants seeds that grow in the mind of the other, until they cannot tell whether the hunger they feel is their own or yours placed carefully inside them. At its root, seduction is psychological. It studies the cracks in human armor and presses gently. It notices the need to be admired, the hunger for recognition, the fear of being overlooked. It magnifies these desires and positions itself as the answer. That is why seduction feels irresistible. It speaks to what we already want but rarely admit. It does not create new desires, it directs existing ones. This is why seduction has always carried both fascination and fear. Societies warn against it because it bypasses rational defenses. Religions condemn it because it tempts the heart away from discipline. Parents caution children against it because they know how easy it is to be swept away. And yet, despite the warnings, seduction endures. Why? Because at some level, we all want to be seduced. We all want to feel chosen, to feel seen, to be pulled into a world larger, more exciting, more meaningful than the one we live in day to day. Seduction also reveals something uncomfortable. None of us are immune. No matter how logical, how disciplined, how rational we claim to be, we carry desires beneath the surface. The longing for attention, for recognition, for beauty, for intimacy, these are universal. Seduction does not exploit weakness, it taps into humanity. And that is why it is timeless. From palaces in ancient Egypt to boardrooms in modern cities, the mechanics remain the same. The settings change, but the psychology does not. The essence of seduction lies in contrast. Power gained by force feels heavy, seduction feels light. Authority imposes, seduction invites. Control restricts, seduction frees, even as it quietly guides. That paradox, that people feel most free when they are most seduced, is what makes it so enduring. To give someone orders may win obedience. To seduce them is to win devotion. Studying seduction, then, is not about copying tricks or memorizing lines. It is about understanding what moves people beneath the surface. It is about seeing the world not only as it appears, but as it feels to others. It teaches awareness of gestures, of pauses, of the unspoken currents in every interaction. It sharpens observation. It asks you to listen not just to words, but to silences. Not just to actions, but to the emotions behind them. Seduction is not a performance you put on, it is a sensitivity you cultivate. And once cultivated, it changes how you see everything. A conversation is no longer just an exchange of information, it is a dance of attention. A negotiation is no longer a clash of logic, it is a shaping of perception. Even casual encounters become opportunities to sense what people crave and what they fear. That sensitivity gives you influence in ways force never can. But seduction is not without risk. Like any form of power, it can be abused. Those who wield it carelessly leave destruction behind them. History remembers not only the allure of Cleopatra and Casanova, but also the downfall of countless leaders, lovers, and manipulators who overplay the art. Seduction can enthrall, but it can also enslave. It can create devotion, but it can also breed resentment once the illusion cracks. To understand seduction is also to respect its danger. So why study it? Because whether we admit it or not, seduction is already at work in our lives. Every advertisement, every influencer, every leader speaking on a stage uses seduction. It is not a question of whether you will encounter it, but whether you will see it clearly. Those who understand seduction can defend against it, use it responsibly, or at the very least recognize its pull when it arrives. And this is where our journey begins. The art of seduction is not a list of tricks. It is a way of seeing. It is a lens through which human behavior becomes clearer, sharper, more honest. It reveals why people are drawn to some and repelled by others. It shows how influence works beneath words, how attention is guided, how desire is shaped. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. This is the nature of seduction. Soft yet strong, invisible yet undeniable, ancient yet eternal. It is the silent current beneath the surface of every human interaction. And to understand it is to understand one of the deepest truths about power itself. Seduction is not one single mask worn by everyone in the same way. It takes on shapes, forms, and roles that align with personality, context, and the desires of others. To understand seduction fully, we must understand its archetypes, the patterns of behavior that have captured human attention for centuries. These seductive characters are not invented. They are distilled from history, art, and experience. Each embodies a way of pulling others into their orbit. The first is the charmer. Charmers disarm with warmth. They do not conquer with force, but with ease. To be in their presence feels safe, pleasurable, as though the world's sharp edges have been smoothed away. They listen closely, they smile often, they reflect back the best in others. In their company, people feel lighter, more appreciated, more alive. Charmers rarely press too hard. Their strength lies in making others lean in willingly, intoxicated by attention that feels effortless yet rare. Then there is the coquette. Unlike the charmer's steady warmth, the coquette seduces by withholding. They give just enough to spark interest, then pull back to create longing. The coquette thrives on absence, on delay, on the push and pull of desire. They know that anticipation is more powerful than satisfaction, and that the mind craves what it cannot fully grasp. Historical coquettes, queens, aristocrats, icons, wielded absence as power, drawing people in by never being fully available, by creating hunger that could never be fed. We also encounter the natural. Naturals seduce through childlike openness and play. They remind people of innocence, of spontaneity, of joy untainted by calculation. Naturals are disarming because they seem unthreatening. Their lightness makes others drop their guard. Yet beneath the playfulness lies a powerful pull, the ability to make people feel free, alive, and unburdened by the weight of responsibility. With a natural, the world feels simpler, more colorful, more real. That feeling is magnetic. Another archetype is the star. Stars seduce by radiating a glow that others cannot ignore. Their strength is spectacle, the way they capture attention simply by existing in the spotlight. Stars exaggerate qualities that others admire or envy, making themselves larger than life. They thrive in performance, in beauty, in presence. To be near them is to bask in reflected light, and people crave that feeling of being connected to something extraordinary. Yet stars also understand that their allure comes not only from brilliance, but from distance. Too much exposure dissolves the mystery, and so they remain partially out of reach. We must also study the rake, whose seduction is intensity itself. Rakes pull others in with raw passion, with a hunger so consuming it makes the target feel irresistible. To be desired by a rake is to feel powerful, as if your presence alone can inflame obsession. This intensity is both thrilling and dangerous. It overwhelms rational defenses, burning away hesitation in a fire of attention. Many have fallen under the spell of rakes not because they were persuaded, but because they were consumed by someone else's relentless desire. Another is the ideal lover. This type seduces by reflecting back the fantasies of others. Ideal lovers sense what people long for but do not have, and then embody it. To one, they are a hero. To another, a dreamer. To another still, a gentle refuge. Ideal lovers act as mirrors, crafting themselves into the very shape of desire in someone's imagination. They don't simply attract, they fulfill hidden needs, making themselves feel like destiny rather than coincidence. There is also the dandy, who seduces by standing apart. Dandies reject convention, embodying freedom from rules and expectations. Their appeal lies in independence, in their refusal to bow to what society dictates. This independence, coupled with style and confidence, makes others feel both intrigued and liberated. To be with a dandy is to escape the ordinary, to step into a world where constraints dissolve. Their seduction is not softness, but rebellion. Finally, we see the seductress or siren, archetypes that embody allure in its purest form. Their power is rooted in presence, in magnetism, in physical and emotional intensity. They project an aura of inevitability, as if resistance itself is futile. Sirens and seductresses pull others not through logic, but through senses, through voice, gesture, mystery, and rhythm. They create a world where surrender feels not only possible, but irresistible. What these archetypes reveal is that seduction is not one size fits all. It adapts, morphs, and shifts depending on the person and the situation. Some people crave warmth, others crave mystery. Some crave passion, others crave freedom. Seduction works by discovering those cravings and embodying the archetype that answers them. The true seducer is not locked into one role. They are fluid, able to play the charmer today, the coquette tomorrow, the star in one circle, the natural in another. They adjust to the stage before them. But equally important, these types also teach us about vulnerability. Every person carries within them desires that make them susceptible. The lonely are vulnerable to charmers, the restless to coquettes, the weary to naturals, the insecure to stars, the passion-starved to rakes, the dreamers to ideal lovers, the constrained to dandies, the uninspired to sirens. To study these archetypes is to map the terrain of human desire. This is why seduction endures. It does not force, it adapts.
It does not conquer by strength, it conquers by knowing what others crave and becoming it. And in this lies its greatest lesson. To seduce is not to impose yourself, but to awaken something already waiting in another.
Every seduction begins with a spark, and yet the spark must never look forced. The first moves are the most delicate because they set the stage for everything to come. Push too hard and suspicion arises. Reveal too much and mystery dies. Do nothing at all and the moment evaporates. The opening of seduction is an art of suggestion. Gentle, subtle, often invisible. It is about planting a seed in someone's imagination and letting them water it themselves. Seduction begins with presence. Before words, before actions, it is the feeling of someone's attention landing on you. Presence is powerful because it communicates without needing language. To look at someone with calm intensity, to listen as though they are the only person in the room, to create an atmosphere where they feel seen, these are the first strokes of the canvas. In a distracted world, attention is rare. To give it is to give something intoxicating. But attention alone is not enough. The first moves of seduction weave mystery into presence. A glance that lingers slightly too long, a pause before an answer, a gesture that feels uncalculated, these leave space for interpretation. Mystery is essential, because seduction thrives not on what is clear, but on what is imagined. The less you reveal, the more the other fills the gaps with their own longing. That act of projection is where desire begins to take root. History is filled with examples of these subtle beginnings. Cleopatra's legendary entrance to Julius Caesar was not simply about beauty, but about spectacle carefully calculated to overwhelm expectation. She had herself smuggled into his chambers rolled inside a rug, not because she needed to, but because it created drama, surprise, and mystery. That first move was unforgettable, and from it her influence grew. Yet not all openings need grand gestures. Casanova often began seductions with small attentions, noticing details others overlooked, remembering little things, creating the sense that his subject was already different, already special. The smallest move, a word, a glance, a carefully timed silence, can matter more than 1,000 declarations. The first moves also rely on pacing. Seduction is not a sprint, it is a rhythm. The opening should never feel rushed. Think of it as music. Silence is as important as sound. To let anticipation grow, to leave moments hanging, to resist the urge to fill every gap, this is how tension is built. If the first moves rush, desire collapses into familiarity. If they are paced with care, desire expands into curiosity. The language of suggestion becomes crucial. Instead of direct pursuit, the first moves hint. They allow others to interpret for themselves. A look that could mean interest or nothing. A compliment that could be casual or pointed. A story told in a way that makes the listener wonder if it carries another meaning. Suggestion opens doors without forcing anyone through. And when people walk through willingly, the seduction has already begun. Another key to the first moves is contrast. Seduction often works by offering something that feels missing. If someone feels overlooked, the first move is attention. If someone feels trapped by predictability, the first move is spontaneity. If someone feels burdened by seriousness, the first move is play. Seduction identifies the hunger and then provides its opposite, creating relief and allure at once. It is important, too, that the first moves never reveal the full intention. Overt declarations rob seduction of its power. To say, "I want you" too quickly collapses the tension. The art lies in ambiguity, in creating the possibility of desire without naming it outright. That ambiguity allows the other person to step into the space voluntarily. And what people choose for themselves, they hold on to more fiercely. Think of the first moves as writing the opening of a novel. If the first page gives away the ending, the reader closes the book. But if the first page hints, suggests, and raises questions, the reader cannot stop turning pages. Seduction operates the same way. The beginning is not about closing the story.
It is about opening it wide. The first moves of seduction are also about restraint. The greatest seducers understand that less is often more. A half smile is more powerful than a full grin. A glance away at the right moment is stronger than a stare. A few words carefully chosen linger longer than endless speeches. Restraint creates hunger. It leaves room for imagination, and imagination is where seduction does its deepest work. In all of this, timing matters most. A move made too early can fall flat. A move delayed too long can lose momentum. The art is in sensing when attention has ripened into curiosity, and curiosity into desire. To move then, not too soon, not too late, is what makes the difference between an opening that fades and one that ignites. Ultimately, the first moves of seduction are less about taking than about giving. They give attention, give mystery, give relief, give imagination. They create a world slightly tilted from the ordinary, a space where possibilities feel alive. Once that space exists, people lean into it willingly, almost without noticing. And in that lean, seduction takes root. Seduction does not rely only on looks, gestures, or presence. Its greatest weapon is language. Not just what is spoken, but how it is spoken, and even what is left unsaid. Words are the threads that weave imagination. They enter the ear, settle in the mind, and echo long after the voice has faded. A careless word can break the spell, but the right word, spoken at the right moment, can alter the course of someone's life. The language of seduction begins with tone. What is said matters less than how it is delivered. A soft voice, deliberate pauses, the music of rhythm, these shape meaning more than the words themselves. A compliment delivered too quickly is cheapened. The same compliment, slowed, allowed to linger in the air, becomes unforgettable. Seduction uses tone not to inform, but to suggest. Silence is equally powerful. Many people fear silence, rushing to fill gaps with chatter. But silence in seduction is not absence, it is presence magnified. A pause after a statement allows imagination to rush in, to interpret, to wonder. A silence after a question creates tension that pulls the other forward. By resisting the urge to fill every space, seduction lets the other person contribute their own meaning, their own desire. Then comes suggestion. Seductive language rarely states directly. Instead, it hints. It uses metaphors, stories, and playful ambiguity. A seducer doesn't say, "I want you." They might say, "I wonder what it would feel like to," leaving the thought incomplete, hanging, inviting the listener to fill in the blanks. This ambiguity is crucial because it keeps the target's imagination alive. When people imagine, they seduce themselves. History offers endless examples. In Renaissance courts, lovers exchanged letters not with blunt declarations, but with coded poetry, metaphors of flowers and stars and journeys. Each line carried layers of meaning. In the salons of Paris, seduction was an art of conversation, where wit, innuendo, and playful contradiction lured minds before hearts. Even in modern settings, the principle remains. The most seductive words are those that leave space for longing. Another tool is storytelling. Seducers tell stories not about themselves, but about feelings. A story can transport, can plant an image, can awaken hidden desires. When Casanova spoke, he often told tales that allowed his listeners to see themselves inside the narrative, to imagine being part of something larger. Stories bypass defenses. They do not argue, they invite. Compliments, too, are part of the language. But seductive compliments are never generic. They are precise, almost intimate in their detail. A simple "you look nice" is easily forgotten. But noticing something small, the way someone laughs, the particular choice of a word, the way their eyes shift when they're thinking, this shows attention deeper than others give. It makes the listener feel seen, not just as a body, but as a person. That level of recognition creates attachment. The language of seduction also includes contradiction, a playful push and pull. Agreeing fully makes you predictable. Disagreeing too much makes you hostile. But mixing agreement with light challenge creates intrigue. It says, I see you, I enjoy you, but you cannot fully read me. This unpredictability keeps the mind hooked, wondering what will come next.
The first moves of seduction awaken curiosity and spark desire. But curiosity fades if it is not nurtured. Desire dissipates if it is satisfied too quickly. To transform attraction into influence, the seducer must create emotional dependency. This is the point where the target no longer feels in control, where they begin to crave the presence, the words, the gestures of the seducer in order to feel complete. Dependency is powerful because it is invisible. It does not happen through overt chains, but through subtle hooks planted over time. It begins with inconsistency. The seducer offers attention, then withdraws it. They give warmth, then coolness. They create a rhythm of presence and absence that destabilizes the target's emotions. The more unpredictable the pattern, the more the other clings, desperate to regain balance. Think of the coquette withholding affection one moment, bestowing it the next. The absence becomes louder than the presence. The target begins to obsess, to replay moments in their mind, to search for meaning in every gesture. This is dependency, the shift of emotional control from self to other. But it is not only absence that creates dependency, it is also exclusivity. The seducer makes the target feel chosen in ways no one else has. Through attention, through precise compliments, through recognition of hidden qualities, the seducer creates the illusion of uniqueness. You are not like others. You are different. You are special. This message burrows deep because every person carries the longing to be seen fully. When someone finally seems to see them, they cling to it, afraid of losing it. Another tool is contrast between pain and pleasure. The seducer becomes the source of both. They create moments of joy, laughter, intimacy, fascination, but they also introduce moments of uncertainty, distance, even jealousy. This emotional roller coaster makes the target dependent on the seducer to restore balance. They begin to associate both highs and lows with the same person, reinforcing attachment even when it hurts. History is filled with examples of dependency crafted with care. Cleopatra again demonstrates the art. With Caesar and later Mark Antony, she mixed lavish displays of intimacy with sudden disappearances, gifts with tests of loyalty, affection with mystery. Each time her presence returned, it felt more intoxicating, because the absence had carved out hunger. She was not simply loved, she was needed. Seduction is never static. It moves, shifts, advances, retreats. At its heart, it is a dance, a back and forth between power and surrender, between control and release. Those who attempt to dominate outright often fail, because force destroys mystery. Those who surrender entirely also fail, because without tension, desire collapses. The seducer learns to move between both roles, orchestrating a rhythm that keeps the target bound. The dance begins with imbalance. A seducer never enters as an equal. They tilt the scales subtly. They might position themselves as the giver of attention, forcing the other to crave it when it is withdrawn. They might establish themselves as slightly out of reach, making the other pursue. Or they might flood the target with passion, then step back into coolness, leaving the other destabilized. Power in seduction comes not from holding the reins tightly, but from knowing when to loosen and when to pull. One of the oldest techniques in this dance is alternating dominance and vulnerability. A seducer who appears only powerful may intimidate but rarely seduces. A seducer who appears only vulnerable may elicit pity but rarely desire. By blending both, they create a paradox: strong enough to admire, soft enough to approach. This contrast fuels intrigue. It keeps the other guessing which version will appear next, ensuring they never feel in control. Jealousy is another step in the dance. Few emotions destabilize as quickly as the sense of competition. By hinting, never declaring, that others desire them, seducers amplify their own value. But they must balance it carefully. Too much provokes anger, Too little provokes indifference. The right dose of jealousy sharpens longing because the target feels they must secure what others might take away. The dance of power also plays with tension between freedom and confinement. A seducer gives the illusion of choice. You are free to walk away anytime, while subtly binding the target with emotions too strong to break. This illusion is vital because people resist openly visible chains but cling to invisible ones. When the target believes they are choosing, the bond grows deeper. History again illustrates these dynamics. Napoleon seduced Josephine not only with power, but with the alternating rhythm of obsession and withdrawal. He wrote passionate letters, overwhelming in intensity, then retreated into coldness, forcing her to chase his affection. She in turn wielded absence, holding back enough to keep him unbalanced. Their entire relationship was a storm of push and pull, destructive at times, but revealing how seduction feeds on instability. Seduction is power, but power is never without risk. Every strength carries within it the seed of its undoing. Just as fire can warm or destroy, seduction can enthrall or ruin. Those who practice it without caution often find themselves trapped by the very strategies they used on others. To understand seduction fully, one must study not only its brilliance, but also its dangers. The first danger is overuse. Seduction loses its magic when it becomes constant. What is rare feels precious. What is endless feels ordinary. A seducer who floods others with attention, with charm, with gestures, quickly dulls their own power. Desire thrives on tension and delay. Too much indulgence suffocates it. Many lovers who once captivated completely later found themselves abandoned, not because they lost beauty, but because they lost restraint. Another danger is exposure. Seduction depends on mystery, on ambiguity, on leaving space for imagination. When the mechanisms become too obvious, the spell breaks. If someone realizes they are being manipulated, resentment replaces fascination. This is why the greatest seducers move subtly, never boasting of conquest, never revealing technique. Those who brag, who expose their hand, transform allure into calculation, and nothing kills desire faster than feeling deceived. Seduction also risks obsession, both for the target and for the seducer. For the target, dependency can spiral into jealousy, paranoia, or despair. The highs and lows that once thrilled begin to corrode. For the seducer, obsession with control can become consuming. They may begin to see every relationship as a conquest, every interaction as a game. This mindset often isolates, leaving behind emptiness disguised as victory. The historical record is filled with warnings. Cleopatra wielded seduction brilliantly, yet her alliances with Caesar and Antony tied her fate to theirs. When they fell, she fell too. Her power, while dazzling, was fragile, dependent on forces she could not ultimately control. Mata Hari's allure captivated audiences and elites, but when suspicion rose, her mystery was recast as deceit, leading to her execution. Even Casanova, remembered for wit and seduction, ended his life in poverty and decline, a prisoner of his own reputation. Another danger lies in backlash. Societies admire seduction in private, but often condemn it in public. The very traits that enchant individuals, charm, mystery, allure, can provoke envy, suspicion, and fear on a larger scale. Seducers often attract rivals who plot their downfall, moralists who brand them corrupt, or crowds who turn on them the moment fortune shifts. Seduction may grant influence, but it rarely grants security. Seduction can also destroy when it becomes unbalanced. True seduction requires rhythm, give and take, presence and absence, warmth and coolness. When that rhythm breaks, when one side consumes too much or withholds too cruelly, the relationship collapses. The same tension that once fueled passion becomes unbearable. Lovers once enchanted become bitter enemies. Allies once charmed become rivals. The seducer who misjudges balance risks turning admiration into hatred. Seduction is often thought of as something belonging to the past, the courts of kings, the salons of aristocrats, the whispers of candlelit rooms. But seduction is not frozen in history. It adapts, evolves, and continues to shape the modern world in ways both obvious and invisible. In fact, today's society may be more saturated with seduction than any era before, though it wears new disguises. Look at advertising. Every brand campaign is an act of seduction. Companies no longer sell only products, they sell desire. A perfume ad does not explain chemicals. It paints a fantasy of elegance, romance, or adventure. A luxury car commercial rarely speaks of mechanics. It seduces with images of freedom, status, and admiration. Even the simplest items are packaged with allure, promising not just utility but transformation. Here, seduction has become industrial, manufactured at scale, broadcast to millions, shaping collective longing. Social media takes this further. Platforms thrive on attention, and attention is seduction's currency. Influencers craft personas, mixing charm, mystery, and exclusivity. They show glimpses of intimacy, a candid moment, a personal confession, then pull back, leaving followers hungry for more. They create dependency by releasing content inconsistently, rewarding attention sporadically, and always hinting at a more glamorous life just out of reach. The cycle is ancient: presence, absence, attention, withdrawal. But now it plays out through screens, seducing not one individual but entire audiences. Politics is another stage. Leaders know that logic alone rarely wins loyalty. People vote not only with reason, but with emotion, with the seductions of hope, fear, and charisma. Campaign speeches are crafted like acts of seduction, weaving promises with ambiguity, inspiring desire for a better world without revealing all the details. History's great leaders were all in some way great seducers. They made people want to follow them, not just accept them. That same rhythm continues today, where the most successful politicians are often those who master charm, spectacle, and presence. Seduction also thrives in business and leadership. A skilled entrepreneur seduces investors not just with numbers, but with vision. A leader inspires employees not only with salaries, but with a sense of belonging and meaning. The most persuasive CEOs are often storytellers, weaving narratives that turn strategy into destiny. This is seduction in a modern suit, less romantic, but equally about shaping desire and creating loyalty. Even in everyday life, seduction surrounds us. A colleague who wins influence may not be the most skilled, but the one who listens with intensity, who makes others feel valued. A friend who draws others in may not be the loudest, but the one who balances attention with mystery. A teacher who inspires may not lecture hardest, but uses pauses, stories, and presence to pull students into curiosity. These are all forms of seduction, though they may never be named as such.